Here we have a 11 by 14 inch canvas. It is stretched linen and it has been toned with raw sienna acrylic paint as always, and that has dried for at least 48 hours. So we're ready to go. I can't emphasize enough how important it is to have a plan before you start painting. That will minimize the risk of issues popping up later on in your painting. So just to avoid that, it's important to have a plan. I say that because I am notorious for winging my paintings, hoping that they'll just work out because I want to get into it. You don't have to over-plan, but I tend to under-plan. So I've thought this one through. I actually have an entire folder of reference photos that I'm going to be drawing information from to do this painting. So earlier this summer, I went out because the sunset was beautiful and there were these cumulus clouds that were just stacking up in the balmy air, catching that warm sunset light. And I've always loved that. That really inspires me. So I went out, took a few photos with cell phone, and here are a couple of them. I probably will end up having 3 to 5 of these that I'm going to be actually mainly looking at. But the picture is going to be not any one of these photos, but more a composite of several of them. So yeah, I have a plan for it. What I'm thinking is putting the main cloud kind of right here, having a smaller but similar cloud back here, maybe having the moon up here, but having the horizon a little bit lower with some trees and then maybe a field. Very simple so that we can focus on those clouds. Let's get into it. Okay, everybody, here we have the palette. I'm going to take some of this burnt sienna here, and I'm going to use that color to put on the sketch. I likely will paint the entire painting with just this one brush. This is a synthetic bristle round brush, probably a number 3. If I use any other brushes, I'll let you guys know. Yeah, but right now I just kind of am painting my whole painting with this one brush. So yeah, that being said, this is my only medium that I use. This is linseed oil. I use it to help the paint flow, but let's grab some more of that burnt sienna. Let's put the sketch on. Now, as I get further towards the horizon, which is right down here, in that background sky, I want to lighten it up and make it look a little bit more yellow. I have to be super careful when I do that, however, because I could very easily accidentally mix green by adding yellow into the blue. I don't want to do that, so I'm going to actually rely on adding in more of that burnt sienna as well as titanium white, and then maybe just a tiny bit of yellow ochre. So think more brown than actually adding yellow, but it will end up looking more like that sunset hazy kind of glow that I'm going for. Okay everybody, I've been very generous with that background sky, but I think I want to make these clouds a little bit bigger, and at least this one right here, make it take up a little bit more of that background sky. It is key to go from basic to complex. If you follow that general rhythm in your paintings, starting out very simple and quick, and ending more complex, that will lead to, I believe, more success with your painting experience. Don't need to get it perfect from the outset, but it allows you to have a foundation that you can build upon as you render going forward. So that's what I'm going to do with these clouds as I put them on. I'm going to need some more titanium white. I'm going to be relying heavily on that. As you would expect for those clouds, you can see I've added some yellow ochre over here. Yeah, it's kind of a mess here, but we're going to mix up a color for those clouds. Again, using the same brush, I am going to take some linseed oil over here and titanium white. I have some scarlet up here. I'm going to take a little bit of that and add it in. It adds some warmth to our titanium white, making it pink. I'm going to take some of this yellow ochre over here, and I like this color actually right off the bat. I'm going to try that. If I don't like it, I can either add more red, more yellow, and more white, just to work with the value and the color until I get exactly what I want. But like I said, I'm going to try this color out. I've added in some sky blue into my cloud mixture along with a little bit more scarlet to make kind of a cool purple, I guess. Now I'm going to mix a color for the land portion of the painting, which is going to be dark. So I'm going to add some burnt umber. Now I'm going to take some of this sky blue, bring it over here and mix it in with some of that burnt umber, which is going to give me a nice dark gray. I think I added a little bit too much of the burnt umber, so I'm going to take some more of that blue. And I actually do want the blue to be somewhat dominant in this mixture, because if it is, I can add this yellow ochre into it, which will create a nice dark green. It's looking brown right now. That just means I need a little bit more of the blue. A little bit more. Just like that. And if I need to, I can actually add a little bit of titanium white into this to lift the value, but let's see if this will work. Okay, that's going to be a little bit too dark, so I am going to add some titanium white to it. Okay, that's better. Right here, I'm actually testing out a color that I mixed. Just kind of a dark green. I'm just putting it on to see how I like it. And right now, I think I can already tell it needs to be a little bit more yellow and a little bit more of a darker value. I'm gonna add some Phthalo Blue onto the palette because it is a very dark blue. And if I mix some of this yellow ochre in with it, I think it's going to give me a nice dark green. If I need to darken it up, I can take some of this burnt umber, mix it in over here. A little bit more of that yellow, bit more yellow. Okay, let's see how we like that. Now if you notice, I do have a line coming in right here. And originally that was because I wanted to maybe put a path coming in, or maybe even a stream coming in, but it's a vector that helps lead your eye into the painting, so that's why I have it there, but I just have to decide at this point, what do I want to make it into? Okay everybody, here is our first layer of paint applied. It is the block-in, if you're going to get technical with your terms. But yeah, the block-in is on, it's good, I like it, except there's one problem. I'm noticing that right up here, there's kind of just a void of sky, and it makes me want to just take these clouds and move them up a little bit. I can't do that because they're already on. So I'm working out ways to try and fix this, but I want to make a point to you that I could have avoided this if I would have taken a little bit more time planning it out in the beginning before I ever came to the canvas to paint it. I could have sketched it out on paper beforehand. I could have even done some color studies with it by doing colored pencil sketches. I could have even painted out a practice version of this. I could have painted it out digitally on my computer. I have done all those methods before and it works out nicely. I didn't do it with this one because I was a little bit impatient, but I just wanted to make that note that these are the kinds of things you can run into if you're not thoroughly planned out with your composition. I think the painting has a lot of potential. You notice how I have a darker strip of cloud that is, right up here. It's a little bit lower so it's not catching any light. I think I want to put another one up here like this. It'll just help frame these clouds in a little bit better, I think. But we're moving into the rendering stage of the painting where I will come in and just add more detail, make those compositional fixes, and start to work with the color and the values. So yes, that's what we're going to do. Let's get into it. I will point out that I painted the block in yesterday, so the paint is actually still wet, which means it is still mixing with the fresh paint that I apply as I apply it. So keep that in mind that down here I've been putting on fresh paint that is this color, that horizon sky color. As I'm putting it in, it is mixing with this purple. We can make it work, but I just thought I'd point that out. Okay, little update here. I am happier with this area now than I was before. I'm not gonna say that I'm totally happy with it. I might do some rearranging up here, but if you take a look at this reference photo here, you'll notice that there's a similar thing going on here. If I took away these darker clouds up here, it just would take away from the interest of these clouds. and there would be a big empty area up in the sky, and it would just kind of look like an imbalance in the composition. But now, taking a look at how I have added in those darker clouds here, it adds interest, it adds balance, it fills in this area in a way that kind of brings everything together. And if you kind of look at these clouds here, you'll notice a vague area that they're pointing. You see that? This one's kind of pointing in here, this one's kind of pointing in here, and they just kind of form a natural vector, drawing your eye into this area, which is the focal point. My plan moving forward is to intensify the color. I'm going to add a lot more chroma into it, especially these clouds here. I am going to add a little bit more contrast, probably actually a lot more contrast. Yeah, so there's a lot to be done. Let's get into it. Let's take a look at our palette here because I'm going to mix a color for the brightest parts of our clouds. And to do that, you see I have titanium white here. This is fresh titanium white, just put it on the palette. I'm going to be taking some of that, and I'm going to come over here and put it down, and then I'm going to take just a tiny bit of yellow ochre, a little bit more white, some linseed oil over here to help the flow. Mix a very bright color. It'll be like a pale yellow. I'm going to take this to the top of our clouds. Okay, now I'm going to add just a little bit more yellow ochre to it, and probably just a touch of scarlet. So up here we have our pale yellow at the very top, and then it kind of gets yellow down here, more orange, and then a little bit darker orange, and then some red down here, and then it gets purple. So keep that in mind when you're mixing your colors. So what do you do when you are about halfway through your painting and you realize you don't really like it anymore? And I'm not talking about minor issues, I'm talking about pretty big compositional issues as well as tone and color, which is foundational to your painting. So in other words, you pretty much don't really like your painting at a core level. That would be the case with this right now. Yeah, so I'm wondering, how am I going to answer that question with this painting? Well, what I did was I stopped immediately, let the painting dry over the weekend, and then I took a picture of it and took that picture onto my computer and painted over the top of it digitally so that I could see if there's a way to salvage what I have. And it's important when you're doing this to see the potential in your painting so that you're not discouraged, and also letting the painting dry. Let's just test it here. It's dry. Okay, letting it dry is very important because now I can paint over the top of it without the layer underneath mixing into that fresh paint that I'm laying down. And that is very key when you're gonna make big changes to your painting. So it's dry, I can see the potential, I have a plan, I'm ready to take what I created, and this is a picture of the digital idea that I have moving forward. I'm going to take this as a reference photo and start to make those changes now. Okay, so let's get into it. You see, I'm covering up parts of this cloud here with that background sky, and I can do it very easily, like I said, because this base layer here of the old painting is dry. I am very happy with where the painting is at right now after making those changes. So what I'm going to do now is come into these clouds and just start to render the image a little bit. That's going to look like adding color and highlights to different areas and also shadows, as well as tightening up my strokes a little bit. Alright everybody, that is going to do it for this one. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to visit my website and see what paintings are for sale, click on the description box of this video and you will find a link which will take you directly to my website. Be sure to check it out and we'll catch you guys in the next video. Until then, God bless you all. We'll see you later.